The important thing is you really need to find the components that match well together. The starting point here is the movement. Find a case where the inside diameter of the case is the same diameter as that movement. Preferably one that's been manufactured for that particular movement specifically. Next you need a dial and you need the hands. Now the dial and hands should also be manufactured specifically for that movement. So the starting point when building your own watch will be the movement, and everything else centers around this. The size of the movement will determine the size of the case. The size of the movement will determine the dial that you will purchase. The size of the movement will determine to a large extent the hands that you will purchase. A popular choice would be the ETA 6497 or 6498 movements. These are relatively cheap to buy second hand. Companies in China tend to be making replicas of these movements now. We do have these replica movements which are actually really rather good for what they cost, and these can be had rather cheaply. If you do search in eBay, you will come across these movements quite easily. They're rather large, so it will require a rather bulky case. If anybody has been following my channel or my watch repair course, you'll know that we've been working with a clone of the ETA 6497, or in particular the 6498 movement, throughout the course and throughout some of my recent videos. And of course I have a few of these lying around, and so we're going to base this project on the ETA. Well, this is an ETA 6498, and so the off-center seconds hand is at this position, and so we're going to need to buy a dial for the ETA 6498, and this is a clone of that movement, a Seagull ST3621.
Okay, so here we are on eBay, and we're just going to start by looking for a 6498 movement. I'm not quite happy with that one. I think we can find better. This one looks more like it. There's more detail on the actual plates. Okay, so now we'll start looking for some hands. And as you can see, there's quite a few different styles of hands, so I'm going to choose these ones. And now we'll look for a dial. Again, many different kinds of dials, all roughly around 40 millimeters. And finally, now that we know which dial we're going to purchase, let's purchase a case. We want to be looking for a case specifically for that movement, if possible, the movement 6497, 6498, but also we'll be able to support the dial that I've purchased as well. And so what we need to do is have a look at the description of the listing and just make sure that the case will be able to support the size of the dial. This is a 2-part case that I've received, got a display back, and it should be the right sizes for the dial. We have a little movement ring in here, and this should step up the diameter of the movement with the diameter of the case. And this is why it's useful to purchase a case specifically for the movement that you wish to work with. So first of all, let's just make sure that the step-up ring or movement ring fits this case. By the way, if you're new to working with watches, you should never touch the movement with your fingers. That's where tweezers come in handy. So first of all, let's have a look at the movement ring here. And what we're going to do is use a casing cushion. I'm just going to pop that over there, and all I want to do, I'm not fitting this now, I just want to check the diameter, and that looks spot on. So this movement is going to fit in this case perfectly with this step-up ring or movement ring. Next we want to see if, or make sure that the dial fits the case. When we looked at the statistics of the movement on the eBay listing, we looked for the dial diameter size tolerance that this particular case will take, and that relates to this ridge here. And the ridge there is in place so that the dial does not fall through and foul the glass. So we're just going to make sure that that is actually what's going to happen. So here we have our dial. Just going to check that the dial fits within the case without falling through and fouling the glass. Now the dial has two what we call dial feet. And those are here and here. And these feet are specifically placed to fit into the corresponding holes in the movement. There's a screw here and a screw here. And these are not actually screws, they're eccentrics. And when they're turned, they apply pressure to the dial feet and lock the dial in place. There is a hole here, and the hole is actually obscured by one of the plates here, but that's where the other dial foot goes into. If we turn this over, you'll see the corresponding holes are here and here. We do need to first place the hour wheel and the dial washer. Hour wheel, dial washer. Now those are placed, we can pop the dial onto the movement, and we'll use our tissue to press down. And we check that there's no gaps between the dial and the movement. And we'll just give the eccentrics a little quarter turn in order to nip the dial feet so that the dial it will be secured. Eccentrics do not tighten fully, so what they're doing is just applying pressure to the dial feet and cut into the dial feet a little bit, just so that the dial does not fall away from the movement. So now the dial is secured. Now I've purchased some hands that seem to me to be a good match with that dial, and they've come tightly packed in this little box in a plastic bag. The bag may be useful to you. They actually use these punch down tools in order to fit the hands as normal, but you may not have these, and so I'll just show you a little trick in order to place these hands, hopefully without scratching them or causing any damage. These proper tools have nylon ends, and that helps to prevent scratches to the actual hands. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this plastic bag, and we're going to use the tweezers. So we'll start with the off-center second hand, and we're just going to lift it onto the pivot. Like so. And we can use our plastic bag and the end of our tweezers to complete the... it's a little fiddly. What we'll do is we'll use our plastic bag and the ends of our tweezers to press it down into place. And use your eyeglass, check to see and make sure that the hand is not touching the dial at all. And what we want to do is put the hour at 3 o'clock. We'll line that up. And this time use the sides of your tweezer blades. As I say, if you do have these punch down tools, then this is the better option because you're gonna provide because there's less risk for damage. However, if you're careful, place a little bit of plastic over the sides and using your tweezers on tweezer blades on either side, press down evenly. If it looks like it's raised up on one side, then apply a little bit more pressure on that side to press down. And that's at 3 o'clock, and of course you want to place the minute hand at 12 o'clock. And again, with the end of your tweezers this time, and your plastic bag, not the safest way of doing it, but if you haven't got the proper tools, then it's a good alternative. Now, I don't want to touch the dial with my fingers, but I do want to quickly check that they're in alignment. So I'm just going to pull out the crown into the handset position and just make sure that is the case. And they look perfectly in alignment to me. Eyeballing it from the side, you can see that the minute hand is actually slightly raised. So we need to address that. And we'll just tilt it down a little bit by put our plastic over and use the end of the tweezers to tilt it down slightly. And we're making sure that the hour hand is not fouling the off-center second hand here. And if it is, you just raise it up just very, very slightly, but not so much that it would foul the minute hand, of course. This is called the setting lever screw, and it needs to be unturned and it needs to be unscrewed just a little bit, or just enough so that the stem can be released. And to do that, we'll use our screwdriver, and we just want to loosen it by one turn. Okay, we test it. It's not coming out yet. We'll loose it by another half a turn. And there, the crown comes out. Now, in order to fit the movement with its dial and hands into the case, let's just first blow out any air, blow out any dust that may have settled on the glass, and just make sure there's no dust specks in there. I can actually see a little something, which I doubt very much will appear on camera. It is very tiny. I'm just going to pick that out. And that to me looks very, very clean. And what we'll do is we'll just place the case over the movement, and we can check again if there are any more spots. that we didn't notice before, and I can see one here. So I'm just going to use my Rodico, and there we go. Looking good. And the technique is once you've placed the case over the movement, lift the whole thing together and just turn it upside down. And there we are. Everything is in position. Movement ring, or step up ring. Press this all the way down into position. If you have two pairs of tweezers, it might be easier. Being careful not to scratch the movement or slip and scratch, and certainly being careful not to touch the balance wheel. Now we do need to make sure that the groove of the movement ring lines up with where the winding stem goes through. They are not lined up, so we'll need to address that now. There you go. You just slightly turn it until it is lined up, and then press it all back into position again. Now we want to put this crown onto this stem, and we'll start by taking this placeholder crown, if you like, off. And we'll just screw this on, but we won't screw it on too tight, just so that it nips. And now we just want to locate the crown and stem back into the movement, and we'll just make sure that's lined up, and it's not, so we need to just turn the whole movement carefully until it does line up, and if the movement ring is fouling, just put your tweezers in and just gently worry it around. There you go. And once you know that is in place, tighten up the setting lever screw until you feel it resist. There, it's resisting now. And then just very carefully nudge the crown until you hear it click, and then you'll need to tighten this up a little bit more. There you go. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of overhang between the crown and the case, and so we need to shorten this stem in order to make it fit. And we're going to measure between the back of the crown and the side of the case. I make that about 7mm. And now we'll remove the crown from the stem. By the way, when you're gripping the stem, don't grip with from any of the sensitive parts down the bottom. Don't grip from the square or any of the parts that go into the movement. Just grip from the actual thread, from the thread part. And we'll just unscrew this. We'll just bring that in. So now we've got a rough edge here, so what we can use is a file or an oil stone, something to smooth down the roughness of the cut. And now we can fit the crown back to the stem and we can test it. And I'm not happy with that. That's just slightly too long still, so we're just going to trim off maybe a little less than 1 millimeter more, and then we should be good. We'll just test that. Looking good. And we're going to secure the movement to the movement ring using the case clamps that came with the movement. And this will just help to keep the movement stable within the case and stop it from rattling around. A word of caution, don't overly tighten these screws. They tend to shear off quite easily. Oops. And finally we can place the back on the watch. And this particular back is secured with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws. And so we'll just screw that into place. And I guess the final job is to fit a nice watch strap. We'll take off the spring-loaded bars that came with the case. And there we have it. We've built a watch using parts sourced from eBay.